Good day everybody. Today I want to talk about the topic of what camera system to buy into when starting out in photography. First of all though, when I started out in photography about 3 years ago, I was looking quite a lot on the internet about what system I should get into and what would be a good deal, and I came to the conclusion that I should buy an APS-C DSLR camera, and yeah, that's what I did. I went with a Nikon D5600 and 18 to 55mm kit lens, and I think paid around 700 euros for it. In the first couple of weeks and months of owning this camera, I was really happy with it, but then after a couple of months I realized that I actually did not want to stay with the system, and therefore I felt very hesitant to buy new lenses for this system. So a couple of reasons why I didn't want to stay with the system. First of all, it didn't have any weather sealing, and for me, as I'm like a landscape photographer, weather sealing is quite important to me. Then also it didn't feel very good to buy into like a quote-unquote dying camera system, as it's a DSLR system. And also I thought the DSLR, the entire system, not just the camera body but also the lenses, were quite bulky, and I didn't really like that. Even though this particular one, as it was an APS-C DSLR camera, wasn't that bulky, but yeah, just didn't really like the aesthetic of it. As I didn't have any other lenses except my 18 to 55mm kit lens for it, and I didn't want to invest in any other lenses because of the just mentioned reasons, I was quite annoyed with the system. So I started looking for other camera systems, and I quickly stumbled upon Fujifilm, though the problem was the cameras I was mainly looking for, the X-T3 and X-T4, quite expensive, with about 1,400 to 1,700 euros for the camera body alone. After about 4 to 5 months of thinking of switching my camera system, I finally decided to pull the trigger, and I traded in my Nikon D5600 as well as my kit lens, and I bought the Fujifilm X-T4 as well as the 16 to 80mm kit lens. And I say kit lens like this because I really think Fujifilm differentiates themselves from other manufacturers with their quote-unquote kit lenses. From what information I could gather, a lot of manufacturers actually sell their like even pro bodies in like a kit with a somewhat cheapish lens to, I don't know, maybe bait people into buying this camera because they think it's a very good deal. Even though the quality of the lens might actually be quite bad. This way people would rather just buy a high quality lens for the camera system they bought into, rather than selling the entire thing altogether and buying into a new camera system. I'm not particularly saying that camera manufacturers do this maliciously, as I think a lot of times people actually don't mind the quality of the kit lens, or the quality of the kit lens is perfectly acceptable to them, because they don't care that much about image quality, and that way camera manufacturers can offer quite a good deal actually. I think Fujifilm behaves differently though. There are quote-unquote kit lenses like the 18 to 55mm as well as the 16 to 80mm offer insane value, or rather quality for money, and I think this is a big reason Fujifilm differentiates themselves from other camera manufacturers. If I would start photography all over again, I would definitely not start investing like 2,000, 2,500 euros into a new camera with a lens, but I would rather stay with the 700 to 800 euros I initially invested, and probably up it a little bit by like 100 euros to about 900 euros. I would likely get a used Fujifilm X-T2. First of all, it has weather sealing, so that's quite important to me as landscape photography, as I mentioned earlier. Second of all, it has all like the professional like gimmicks you want in a camera. And thirdly, it is a camera system I know I would want to stay with, and therefore I can, without hesitation and without thinking about it, just extend my lens lineup. In addition to that, I would either get the 18 to 55mm kit lens, which you can buy used for about 300 euros in a good condition, or I would rather, I think, go for the 16 to 80mm kit lens, also in a used condition, which you can buy for around 400 euros. And this one actually has weather sealing, so it also fits the camera. Another option, of course, would be to buy a camera new, which for Fujifilm I would definitely not recommend if you're just starting out in photography, because I think the cheapest deal you can get would, with the zoom lens, of course, not with the prime lens, would be the Fujifilm X-T30 Mark II with the 18 to 55mm kit lens. I think for that you pay around 1,400 euros, which is quite a lot of money when you're just starting out in photography. Unfortunately, a lot of people actually dismiss buying used gear, maybe due to bad experiences in the past, and rather opt for buying new gear. This buying a new camera and lens as your first camera and lens oftentimes leads to people buying less capable cameras due to the features they have. And also oftentimes people invest into a camera system they actually don't want to invest in or actually don't want to stay in. Of course, this is quite hard to know if you're just starting out in photography and you are buying your first camera. I, for one, definitely did not know. Now, if you actually invest in a camera system like Fujifilm for me or any other camera system you love, you get to actually buy like a new used camera and can extend your lens lineup however you want to without hesitation. And if you actually fall out of love with photography or don't specifically love it in the first place and you just wanted to try it out, you can basically sell it for the same value you bought it for, maybe minus like 10 or 20%, because used gear doesn't really decrease in value that much. And if you've actually invested in your dream system, you can just buy a newer and maybe better camera down the line if you actually feel like you need to. This way, you actually only have the cost of switching your camera body if you really feel like you need to. And you basically have no other costs. And of course, if you switch your camera body, if you use like a battery grip or an L bracket, you will have to probably buy a new one of those as well. Though the cost of, for example, an L bracket, if you buy a new camera body, is almost insignificant in comparison to the new camera body. The main takeaway of this video is that I want you to invest in a camera system you actually love and believe you will use in the future as well, rather than just buying into a camera system that you can currently afford. So you should buy a camera, probably a used camera, in the camera system you love, and this way you get to extend your lens lineup however you want to without hesitation, without thinking about if you would actually stay in this system. May that be Fujifilm like it is for me, or any other camera system for you. So buy a used camera first if you're just starting out in photography and you really just want to know if you love it and you want to stick with it. And also for the lenses, of course you can buy newer, better, more lenses in the future, but for the first couple of months or maybe even year, I would stick to the one zoom lens you have, the 24 to 70mm full frame equivalent, because an argument could be made that you really only need that lens for about like 70 to 90% of all the shots you take. Of course, if you extend your lens lineup and you have a couple of more lenses, you will use these other lenses as well. But oftentimes it's not specifically necessary to have these other lenses. There are exceptions, of course. For example, if you're a wildlife photographer, you will need a telephoto lens. You won't get around that. And also if you're, for example, a real estate photographer, you will need a wide-angle lens, because otherwise you can't photograph the real estate. Anyway, this is it from me for today. Tell me in the comments down below, I'm really curious, what camera system are you using right now? And also, have you switched camera systems just after starting photography because you realized that you actually need or have different needs in photography? Yeah, tell me, I'm really curious. And yeah, if you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. It boosts the YouTube algorithm immensely and it really helps me out. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, have a good day. Bye.